Father, look! It's the new Mega Man X game!
You know what we have at home, boy.
But there's brand new stages and brand new robot masters.
See the line, boy.
But you can play as Zero and Slash stuff.
The line, boy. Say it.
We have Mega Man at home.
Mega Man at home.
So I had the pleasure of growing up in the 90s. Through the entirety of the decade, from 5 to 15, the 90s were formative. I built my personality, my likes and dislikes, as well as some necessary abilities that carried into adulthood. Now, in the early to mid-90s, a certain phenomenon took the Western adolescent world by storm. It was slightly after, or maybe during the Pog craze, but definitely before the Pokemon craze. And that phenomenon was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Teenagers with attitudes. Teenagers with secret identities fighting space monsters between classes. Kids couldn't get enough. The show, the merchandise, and of course the toys. And back then, the purpose of any Saturday morning kids show was strictly to promote Toyline sales. And Power Rangers had some toys. Now, in 1990s money, these toys weren't cheap, and my parents weren't about that life. Plus, add in the fact that they couldn't understand the difference between a Ninja Turtle and a Power Ranger anyway. And I already had a lot of Ninja Turtle toys, so my mom told me to just play with those and be happy with that. And that's what I did. Albeit begrudgingly, but that's what I did. I mean, some of the colors were there. Red Ranger was Raph, Blue was Leo, and Donnie and Mikey were interchangeable based on whatever I was imagining at the time. I essentially learned to adapt and find happy alternatives to the things I didn't have. I carried that ability right into my gaming adulthood. For example, I tend to be more Sony-based when it comes to gaming, so I've learned to find happy alternatives to the Zeldas, the Metroids, and the Marios, and everything in between. Now, with console libraries being as vast as ever, and inspiration being found from iconic games that started it all, there are so many we have that at home alternatives out there. So the connotation that goes with saying we have that at home is not always a bad one. Yes, sometimes the we have it at home version can suck and just be straight trash, but other times it can be just as good or better or just different while maintaining ties to the original source of inspiration. So with all that said, if you haven't guessed it yet, let's check out some alternatives to the Mega Man X games.
Security guard が暴走している。破壊を推奨する。
そりゃあそうだろうけど、暴走はちょっとシャレにならないんじゃないの
？First up is Kojin Sword of Rewind. Take Zero from the Mega Man X games, sprinkle in some Sands of Time rewind mechanics, and you get Kojin. Rewinding time is this game's principal mechanic. I don't even think it's truly relevant to the story. It feels as if it's there really just to differentiate itself from the rest of the games in the we have that at home genre. You play as Kohaku, a high school girl caught in situations that would be more expectant of an adult to deal with, yet somehow this child is thriving and winning. She wakes up in some strange factory with a talking sword. The whole scenario seems oddly familiar and reminiscent of another beloved franchise. Naturally, Kohaku has no idea what's going on, but of course the sword does. Things get explained, things get taught, and things get learned. Story beats are moved along via visual novel-style dialogue scenes that are actually fully voiced in Japanese. The story is decent enough and told well enough. It's not the strongest point of the game, but it was compelling enough to make me want to see what happens next. Gameplay-wise, you have a slash, a double jump, wall grab, dash, and slash, and finally air dash and slash. On top of all that, Kohaku is able to rewind time to a max of 3 seconds. The 3-second time slot also acts as her health meter. If you take damage while out of a rewind meter, then it's game over. The meter does refill on its own over time, plus there are checkpoints generously stamped throughout the levels, and each checkpoint refills your rewind meter too. So it's not really game over until you turn off the game. So Kohaku is introduced as a dainty high school girl. but damn near instantly becomes a tank who can cling to walls, drop from 50 feet in the air, and land flat-footed, dash through the air, and slice and dice the biggest of machinery. But Lord forbid an enemy ever graze her in the slightest of ways. It's instant damage. 1-4 rewind stock completely gone, just by being too close to the enemy, even if they aren't attacking. And honestly, receiving damage just from brushing up against enemies in this day and age it feels antiquated. Like this forced consequence, for lack of a better phrase, seems to add to the pattern of the game in order to make up for its shortness. And with that shortness, the game can come at you really fast. So learning how and when to properly rewind time is a big part of the gameplay. I do like the fact that the mechanic is loose enough where you can find clever ways to use it. Some methods are given to you based on immediate demands of the game design, but then you can branch out a bit, like double jumping, rewind once in midair, and it resets your double jump count to 0, so essentially allowing you to do a quadruple jump and reach further distances or higher locations. Like I mentioned, the game is pretty short. There are 5 levels that you're required to play twice in order to see the credits roll. The second loop sequence changes up enemy attack patterns, enemy aggression, and even bosses get a few new moves added to their attack patterns. So even though the game hits you with a faux denseness in its game design by making you play the same 5 levels twice, with only slight variations in existing annoyances, I still enjoyed myself. The difficulty was challenging enough for me to check myself and reassess what I'm doing wrong. But after maybe halfway through the second loop, I got tired of the sameness of the enemy levels. I just wanted to make it to the ending just to see the story play out. So, despite the sameness and slight burnout, the game was very brief, and I actually wanted to play more of the game after finishing it. Surprisingly enough, there is DLC. It gives you new characters and more story beats that fill in the holes of the original story. I essentially wanted to play more of the game, so I bought more of the game to play more of the game. That is crazy work. When I say it out loud like that, I mean, I'm more of an old school, just take the game how you get it kind of guy. But I dived in and got more of the game. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ramping of the difficulty. With each new loop, I actually felt the joy from the struggle of trying to get through difficult platform sections or boss fights. I don't know, maybe I'm just drifting into masochism when it comes to my gaming habits. So, all in all, Kojin Sword of Rewind is not a game for casual gamers. If you played Mega Man X4 and up, maybe even some of the Gunvolt games and want something else to try, give Kojin Sword of Rewind a try. But honestly, you're better off playing the Gunvolt games as a we have that at home alternative. Metal Suits is basically John Wick in space, with pixel art. You're retired, you mind your business, enemies attack your ship, blow you up and your dog, but somehow through the magic of video game logic, you survive. Your dog doesn't, but you do, and are put back together. And now it's vengeance time. It really took me a while to figure out how I felt about this game. I think the main reason is that I'm not a fan of the Western, diminutive, chibi style. Just that graphical aesthetic alone made me hold off a bit from truly diving in. The trailer for the game looked interesting enough, but when I got my hands on the actual game, it felt different from what I was expecting. Metal Suits reminds me of old school Apogee games on DOS, games like Duke Nukem 1 and 2, or even Biomenace. 30-something years prior, I loved those games, and I didn't know any better. But 30-something years later, present day, the love is not so much, and I also know a little better. The main draw of Metal Suits is the metal suits. You're a rebuilt cyborg with future space technology, but just can't seem to take a hit. Every single enemy can one-shot you, sending you back to a checkpoint or a game over. This is where the game's moniker comes in. Metal Suits periodically drop down or can be found hidden at the end of a secret path or hidden breakable walls. The suits give you a much-needed power-up, but they all have a finite energy reserve that gradually depletes after use or faster if taking damage. The suits do tend to last pretty long, and you can become a bullet sponge However, larger enemy attacks can do significant damage, depleting your enemy energy faster. When your suit is depleted, you revert back to the base form dollar store cyborg that can't take a hit. Sometimes all you can do is avoid enemies as best as possible until another suit drops. The suits themselves are varied and interesting. There are good ones and bad ones like Gatling gun, shotgun, or drones, and oddly enough, teddy bear grenades. And it's all randomized. As far as I know, there's no way to trigger a specific suit drop. You get what you get and just hope that's what you want or like, or it will let you survive until you find a better suit. This game has a level design that is kind of a faux open environment, similar to the 16-bit era adventure games on SNES and Genesis. There's lots of ways to go, but ideally there's only one end-level location to arrive at. I felt some levels were a little too open and long-winded, taking anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes to get through, and that's not even including trial and error either. There are checkpoints, but they are few and oddly spaced. And regardless of checkpoints, if you unalive too many times, it's game over and back to the beginning of the level. It's frustrating to make decent progress just to have it snatched away like a wig at a Waffle House. Too many wrong moves and back you go. The stages and exploration of those stages are just variations of the first stages, just with different themes. Lava stage, ice, city, cave, desert, all cut from a cloth that's been folded over too many times. In stage 8, the game does have a bit of an identity crisis. It throws a random shoot-'em-up section at you, but it's never to be seen again after that. Personally, I could have used 2 or 3 more of those shoot-'em-up sections to help break up the sameness of the cloth those other stages were cut from. Throughout the game, the music that is paired with this adventure is rock mixed with synth and metal. I'll admit, I'm not the most qualified to discuss that genre of music or even interpret it, but overall the game's sonic choices made it feel like I was in a dirty 90s strip club with dancers like Starla, Skylar, or Lethal Weapons coming to the stage. Ultimately, I was able to find some enjoyment in the game, and there was fun in slowing down and strategizing the best routes, how to approach groups of enemies or platforming sections. The boss battles were unique in design and challenging, but at the end of the day, I beat Metal Suits as a courtesy, just so you don't have to. To sum up my experience with Metal Suits, it's similar to chasing an elusive nut. At times it feels good, but it just doesn't feel good enough for long enough to get you to finish. Smelter, Forged in Hell. This game right here had the strongest Mega Man X vibe out of all 3 games. The respect paid to X the Maverick Hunter is undeniable. It's undeniable, but it is in no way a carbon copy. It's different enough to stand up from the source of inspiration, but still keep its ties to it. Eve's character pays homage to X's maneuverability. It's such a subtle, negligible thing to the uninitiated, but the fans will see it's all there. The running, the blaster, the dashing, right down to the wall jumping. It's all there, and those aren't even her strongest moves. It's these features, the giant nod to X's movements, that inspired me to make this video in the first place. Story-wise, the game starts off in the Garden of Eden. Eve and Adam are chilling, and an explosion happens. Eve gets separated from Adam and spends the rest of the game just trying to get back to him. Along the way, she comes across a weird space monster, mass symbiote thing that offers to bond with her in order to help her find Adam. The non-verbal Eve somehow understands and agrees to bond, and the game begins. So unfortunately, right out of the package, the game is burdened with a dual identity crisis. I say dual identity crisis because it seems the devs had more than one idea that they wanted to do. I say burdened with because it is a fully biased opinion of mine, because the other identity of this game is a top-down strategy tower defense game. Right out of the package, that's what you get. Fun, challenging, beautifully designed action platformer sections, and then a tower defense mode. Thankfully, however, and God bless the devs for this, the devs themselves are wise enough to bless players with the ability to turn off the tower defense sections completely, entirely, and indefinitely. You can play through the game as an action platformer only, from beginning to end. And yes, you are correct. I don't much care for tower defense games. I personally think Smelter would have thrived way more without it. But Smelter is challenging. The game forces you to learn it and understand it while losing repeatedly. It's challenging, but if you could beat a Mega Man game, you could beat Smelter.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
It's very sound transferable logic, so again, if you could beat a Mega Man game, you could beat Smelter. And Eve is by no means a bare-bones character. As scantily clad as she is, she has a lot of tools at her disposal. Once the right power-ups are acquired, sections become not easier, but less harder. Imagine benching 300 pounds and then removing only 5 pounds. That's what I mean by less harder. This game consistently stays within the realm of challenging and only increases as you progress. The challenge comes from difficult, awkward enemies and bosses, precise platform combinations, long endurance auto-scroll sequences with frustratingly placed attacking enemies. But surprisingly, there's no touch damage. If enemies aren't attacking, you can walk right through most of them even without your phase ability activated, unlike the previously mentioned Glass Cannon Kohaku. There are checkpoints throughout the stages, but some of them are spread so far out that the game actually held me hostage for a while. I couldn't play anything else for fear of having to start a difficult stage from the beginning all over again. I fought so hard for those checkpoints that losing them just to play something else felt crazy to me. So as mentioned earlier, Eve has several abilities that can be unlocked to help you progress through the game. There's a total of 40 abilities, and some are undeniably essential to getting further in the game. The only downside is that the abilities are locked behind a pseudo paywall, and to get through that paywall, the only currency accepted is skill. So in order to power up your abilities, you need special tokens that can only be acquired by beating special challenge rooms hidden throughout the stages. Each stage has a total of 3 hidden challenge rooms. The good thing at least is that once you find the challenge rooms, you can attempt it as many times you want on the overall map. Now these challenge rooms are not only there to earn a much needed upgrade token, but they are there to double check if you've been paying attention and have been really taking in the game's meta, as well as prove just how well you understand the game. Each challenge room restricts already attained abilities and dictates what ability is allowed to be used for a particular challenge. The room can request you to get through in record time, not get spotted by enemies, complete a series of difficult platforming sequences, or just simply make it to the end without unaliving. I know I vented about this game a lot on IG while I was trying to beat it, but as I look back on it, it's an amazing game. It may not be for the casual gamers with its barrier to entry based on skills, and doubly so if you don't turn off the tower defense mode, but for me, I got such a good new feeling from it. I felt I walked away from this experience as a stronger gamer. This game actually leveled up my skills. I feel strong enough and confident enough to go back to Cuphead, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. I don't think I've ever walked away from a game feeling an increase in skills, and that's saying a lot. Now, I know the year is still fresh, but Smelter Forged in Hell might be my game of the year so far for 2025. Alright, just like that, the big bad label of "we have that at home" isn't such a bad thing. But of course, it isn't such a bad thing at times. And as gamers, we have to be able to take the good with the bad. And by saying that, I really mean, let's not be so quick to demonize games that try to do it like the GOATs who came before. As far as I know, most inspiration-inducing pieces of work received their inspiration from works that came before. If you really look into it, Mega Man wouldn't be here if not for being inspired by Astro Boy, and Astro Boy wouldn't be here if not for being inspired by Pinocchio, and so forth and so forth. In our time, what we know as new and innovative is really just riding off the ripples of inspiration caused by another's previous work. So, understandably, we have that at home game alternatives out there that try to copy but can't keep up. There are games out there that keep up a little too well, and then there are games out there that sees what's up, nods, and then does their own thing while riding the ripples of inspiration caused by the works of those who came before. I think this is a good point to end on, so let me know what you think in the comment section. And as always, play more games and finish your games.